Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies. Today, again, with Stas Krapivnik. Stas, welcome back.
Welcome. It's Fish Thursday, or is it Bonding
No, no,
Tuesday?
no, no, no. It is Bridge and Power Plant Tuesday, as we speak on this Tuesday, 7th of April. It's the day when Donald Trump threatened to flatten the entire country of Iran if the bastards, as he calls them, don't do as he says and open the Strait of Hormuz and so on, which, by the way, is not closed. So open something that you never closed. What are you making out of this? And obviously, this talk will only go out after the day is done. So maybe this is going to be old news. But can you give us your take of what kind of insanity we watched over the last weekend?
Well, it's partially open. It depends whose side you're on. For example, by the way, the Indians can't get their ships out because they kind of betrayed Iran and they betrayed Russia, and Modi got a nice medal from the Knesset, and they said screw BRICS and everything else, and all of a sudden 2 months later everything goes to hell for him. It's open for people who are going to pay $2 million for tolls. Some of them actually don't have to. I think the Chinese can go without it, and the Pakistanis, and who bought in non-dollar denominated currency. And what they've said, they said flat out, because their goal is now expel the U.S. out of the Persian Gulf. It's like any country goes neutral, tells the Americans to get out. You're kosher with us. We'll go forward. But so far, the Arabs haven't said that. In fact, the Arabs are playing both sides, a neutral role, but they're quietly being involved. And then you got MB,
Yes.
no, not MBS. I'm sorry, MBZ, MBZ, the head Mohammed bin Zayed, who's the head of the president of the entity known as the United Arab Emirates, which is 7 villages that grew up with the 7 artificial cities. He's, they're all for it. Let's go grab some islands. Of course, their military is rather small. It's 60,000, 65,000. And considered out of that, maybe about 12 to 15,000 are actual combat soldiers. And most of those are mercs, including a lot of American mercs as officers. They're counting on the U.S. Marines doing most of the dying for them. But even then, these entities would cease to exist because once they're fully involved in combat with Iran, Iran will target their desalination plants, and bye-bye.
No, it's kind of out of the question that they go all out in the sense of declaring war on Iran, but at the same time they are still crying for help from the United States and also from Europe, and they are not apparently wanting to go the route of declaring neutrality and actually kicking out the Americans. They are not going to declare something like that. But over the weekend, we've actually seen this very, very bizarre story that all of us are still trying to wrap their head around, of this kind of the pilot who got rescued. But by now it is kind of supposed that maybe this was a failed attempt at extracting the uranium from Iran. I mean, what is your take at what that was?
Well, I think it was both. Pilot got rescued, and then that the guy he hid out. Well, he wasn't a pilot; he was the weapons officer and a colonel, a lieutenant colonel, rather, which is kind of odd that a lieutenant colonel, the XO for this squadron, would be flying on a mission. By the way, with just one F-15 Strike Eagle, but okay. So this guy said, they said he hid out, he hid in a cave, was injured, and climbed, 7,000 feet, which is only about 2,000 meters, which was it's a small mountain, big hill, and then got rescued. But then, and I believe he probably did get rescued. I'm sure it actually happened that way to a degree, because here's I'm sorry, I got a little bit of allergies, still. Spring's in the air. But here's the interesting thing. So we know what was lost. 2 C-130s, up to 4 little birds, which are the helicopter special forces use to fly in. They're very small helicopters, are probably brought in the C-130s. We know there's at least one A-10 that was taken down. and there were two Pavehawks, which are specialized Black Hawks for extraction. They were taken out. Now the Black Hawks were damaged. At least one of them was damaged that first day, and you see smoke streaming out of it. They're like, oh, they shot it down with a missile. No, that wasn't a missile, because if a missile hit it, that thing would just fall out of the sky. Helicopters don't glide for obvious reasons. Since it was still flying and streaming smoke, it was small arms fire, and everybody's taking pot shots at it. It was a little funny watching these local tribes are running around with the hunting rifles, and then the police with pistols, and everybody's just shooting at it. And these helicopters are flying in. So they suppose they got the first guy out, and there were additional casualties. No KIAs, just WIAs amongst the crew to get this guy out. The first guy out. Okay, so, and apparently the helicopter was a write-off. Not sure when they lost a second Pavehawk. That's not very clear. Now, the A-10 got smacked by an anti-aircraft missile. Now they're talking there might have been an F-16 that got whacked the same day. But then you go into the part two of the scenario. You see, Pavehawks can go long distance because they can put a C-130, specialized C-130 as the fueler up in the air, and the Pavehawks, as opposed to just Black Hawk helicopters, they can refuel mid-air. They've got a buoy for refueling, and they'll fly up and refuel. And there's videos of them refueling behind. So they have extended range that normally they wouldn't have, and they're used for getting people out. Now, normally, when you get somebody out, it's in it and out. That's the whole point. Minimal amount of troops. You get in there, you grab the guy, you get the hell out. If he's on top of a mountain, you don't need to land. You drop a ladder, or you drop a sleigh down, strap him in if he's wounded, and lift him up. Just like in water rescues. It's the same concept in the end. Land, water. Helicopter doesn't have to land. The whole point is you get in as fast as you can using minimal resources, get the hell out before everybody notices, hey, there's a helicopter overhead getting somebody out.
So it makes zero sense to have then all of these equipment coming in, right?
Right. You have 150 guys. You have special forces having firefights. Like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Hey, very brief intermission because I was recently banned from YouTube. And although I'm back, this can happen anytime again. So please consider subscribing not only here, but to my mailing list on Substack. That's pascalotta.substack.com. The link's going to be in the description below. And now back to the video.
And this guy's on top of a mountain. He's not locked into some little village, he's backed up, and there's guys coming, bad guys coming from all sides. I'm sure the Hollywood version will be like that. But the reality, he's on a mountaintop. I mean, these mountains are pretty open if you look at them. There's there's vegetation and agriculture in the valleys, and the mountains are very dry and barren. So you don't have to fight through trees. He's right there. You bring the helicopter, strap him in, pull him up, and you're flying as you're pulling him up, getting the hell out of there as fast as you can. That's rescue. That's locate and rescue the guy. Now you've got two C-130s. You've got little birds flying in. And yes, and I actually recorded the video I just posted on this from yesterday. And then I was on RT, America Now, which is a subsidiary of RT that's just starting up. And I was talking to Ben Swan. He's like, yeah, I think this is a mission. I'm like, the more I think about it, this is a mission. He's like, well, there's a nuclear facility not very far from where they're at. And you look on the maps, like, yes, there is. I think this is under the cover of them getting this guy out, which I'm sure the guy was being pulled out, but that was a secondary. The primary was to move in there and try to do something with this base, which then you go into idiot mode here. It's a nuclear facility. There's a limited amount of them. Guess what? The Iranians figure out you're probably going to go for it. You land two C-130s. Supposedly they had to be abandoned and burnt because they got stuck in the mud. You look at the photos, there's no mud there. First of all, there's no mud there. It's a dry desert area, plateau that they landed. It was an air base.
But let's give it to them. Maybe they got stuck in the sand, right? I mean, let's give them that one. But
well, those things could take off in the sand. Those things you take off in the mud unless it's like black earth mud, like in southern Russia and Ukraine. I mean, the fact there's fuselages that you look at and they're full of holes, bullet holes. Small arms holes. Because a bullet going through a fuselage as a plane's flying, that makes a lot of damage, more than it would if it was just a non-moving target. So there's damage in the fuselage. So obviously these things are getting shot at. Which begs the next question, by the way. How did they get the rest of these guys out? So you got two C-130s who were burnt on the tarmac. So there had to have been more planes coming in because the little birds were burned too. So you just gotta wonder, okay, and the 100+ guys on the ground went where? Did they start ruck marching for the next 100 kilometers to get across the Iraqi border, which, by the way, there were militias waiting for them? Well, I guess they could go south through the Iraqi border and then a little bit into Kuwait. That's a little risky. So where did they where did they evaporate to? Something that's had to have been even more planes coming in to get them out, obviously. So it wasn't just two C-130s.
Yeah, so what we know that crashed and that got destroyed, and whether it got burned by these troops themselves or it got destroyed in the action. I mean, we know this was just part of the actual of what was used in order to have the operation with hundreds of people. So it was a big, large operation, obviously.
Right, and no, I don't see anybody asking a question. They're all going, okay, two planes. Yes, there were two planes of all two C-130s. Well, wait a minute. If there are two C-130s and they're still on the tarmac, they've been blown up. Because what the Air Force will do is, what they did with the F-15 crash site is they blew it up. And they launched a missile into it, they blow it up, which I imagine if anybody dies in their plane crashes, that you get rid of the evidence of the guy's body too, because blow everything up into small pieces. But these were burnt. I mean, you could tell the different parts of different planes that were there. So again, how did it get out? So yeah, you're right. There has to be at least twice as much equipment as we're accounting for.
So, what
casualties?
I mean, we wouldn't know, right? Up until now, we still don't have exact figures for the casualties in Ukraine and in Russia. I mean, states are really good at keeping casualties kind of secret, right? So no hope of getting these numbers anytime soon. But what does this tell us about the situation? On the one hand, we now know that the entire rhetoric of like, oh, Iran is now open skies for us, we have absolute maneuverability is BS. On the other hand, we also know that the US, in that case, special forces have the ability of getting far into Iran, but at very high risk, very high cost, and probably this operation just failed and they had to abort midway. That's about it, right?
Well, far is not that far. I mean, realistically speaking, they were about 50 kilometers in from the Persian Gulf, maybe about 100 kilometers inside of Iran.
Okay.
Iran's huge. So
yeah,
to say they go far, I mean, it's pretty deep in there, but they're not really far. I mean, Iran is France, Germany, and Italy put together.
Yeah.
So it's one big block. So they've gone in, and that's the other thing, when they're talking about American planes or Israeli planes, most of them are still flying standoff, and if they're flying into Iran, they're not flying very deep. And we saw one A-10 destroyed, we saw another A-10 damaged, we saw there was a Chinook. Chinooks are huge helicopters. They're some of the biggest in the world, troop-carrying or cargo-carrying helicopters, big and long. And it was damaged by a drone on a tarmac. Well, damaged is a very loose term, you know. I've been injured. I stubbed my toe or somebody chopped my arm off. I've been injured. You know, what does injured mean? Which, by the way, the U.S. military also does that about people. It's been damaged. And then the photos came out. You know, it's a write-off. The whole front end is gone. So it's scrap metal. I mean, they could use it for spare parts. So the back 2/3 with a back rotor, that you could use that as for cannibalizing it for other Chinooks, but it's a write-off. You're not going to repair that damage. So it's the same thing that goes for a lot of the planes. You know, the second A-10 was damaged. How damaged? You know, is it a write-off? Just because, by the way, it lands on the, you can get it back and land on it, doesn't mean you're ever going to take off back on it again.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a one-way trip. So we don't know. And how many casualties? We don't know. So I'm sure there'll have a lot more than one or two.
So again, this would at least explain then why Donald Trump, while declaring victory, we've got the guy, best operation ever, why then a half an hour later he has this tirade and this temper tantrum of like threatening bridge and power plant Tuesday and calling the Iranians bastards and like the F word and whatnot. I mean, really. Yeah, I mean, really the kind of worst language you can imagine from a US president, kind of unheard of. And do you think that this is him just being really, really mad that at the end he's not able to do what he was promised that he would be able to do, or is this him planning? I mean, the heavy intimidation part. But then again, usually people who are forced to swear and whatnot are usually not on their strongest feet, are they?
Well, sometimes you swear just to make a point, but sometimes you swear because you can't control your temper. Um, I understand he's the president of the United States, but there should be a manager walking behind him going, "Let me see that." No, we don't want to say it like that. Let's re-edit that, sir. Now we can hit send. He really needs a filter between him and that freaking smartphone of his because he's talked himself into so many war crimes
Yeah.
just from his own language that he's used. The threats that he's used he's already, I mean, it's a war of aggression. Iran was not about to attack anybody. There's no immediate danger. I mean, Iran's been developing nuclear missiles for 40 plus years now. It's only just a week away or a month away for 40 years. So, that's obvious enough that that's not a pretext for immediate action because 40
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, it's just not.
To anybody who didn't hear that, 40 years, 2 generations they've been developing nuclear weapons for apparently, and they can't do it or they won't do it.
That's the accusation. Yeah, but Dean, do you? I mean, if they, do you think? I mean, America probably has the capability to actually still do massive damage to civilian
Oh, yeah.
infrastructure, especially if they go after the power grid. That's probably the biggest threat, isn't it?
Yeah, there's different ways to go after the power grid. First of all, you can do without actually blowing up the power grid directly. You can do graphite bombs, which they release strips of graphite and aluminum, and when they come down on the wires, they'll short circuit the wires
Oh no,
from the transformers.
that's mean.
So yeah, it's mean, but it's not that massive damage. I mean, you're not blowing them up; they can be cleared up. But it's a, I guess it's a kinder version because you could, I mean, you will spark fires, but it's not the mass damage of a rocket hit. But that's one way. But I think they're going more into the mass kinetic damage version. Let's blow everything up because it looks pretty, and I can watch it on 2 minutes of briefing in the morning. That's but Iran's told them flat out, and I hope they're well, you could call them allies, but really they're not even clients. Their meat shields in the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, are listening to the fact that Iran said it does what it says. That it's going to go after everybody's. You start going after their electric infrastructure desalination, they'll go after everybody else's electric plant desalination, and there's going to be mass die-offs if they do that. So I'm hoping that these countries, these sheiks, are listening.
But I'm starting to have this problem that, like, the United States striking Iran and then Iran striking in retaliation the Gulf states is a little bit, like the big bully hitting the small guy, and then the small guy in return hits the even smaller guy. It's like it doesn't really hurt the United States if the Gulf countries go to. I mean, even if they go to hell, if they completely burn the United States, they will still run the way they do. So in a sense, they have the Gulf states now are becoming the shock absorbers for the United States that the US really doesn't need to care about.
Well, let me put it this way. Okay, so you got a big bully, or you got a big tank, and you've got lots of little tanks. They all do damage. Now, to destroy the big tank is going to take a lot of hits. Meanwhile, the little tanks are shooting at you, or little guys are still punching at you. So you're better off sometimes going after the allies of your enemy, because those allies have a much lower threshold of pain that they can tolerate.
But are they
You strip-
punching at the moment? I mean, I think the all of the US infrastructure in these Gulf states is by now more or less gone, isn't it? Or is the US still doing operations from these bases?
They're still doing operations from these bases. It's gotten much more limited. Obviously, they're blinded. The Saudis are still allowing them to use airspace, and even though they supposedly aren't, they're still allowing them to use airspace, and they're allowing them to use airstrips, which supposedly they aren't, but they are. So what you're doing here is, you're stripping away the American allies, and the hope is you're forcing them to go neutral, which means goodbye American bases in the future. That's a big hit on Trump. That's a big hit on his prestige. That's a big hit on his rating at home. That's a big hit on the markets. And let's not forget, this war is all about markets as well, more so than about people. Because the Trump administration, the people around Trump, are making money off of this.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, prices are heading toward $4.50 in the U.S. per gallon for E87. That's their base gasoline or petrol. It's E87. It's pretty low. But that's almost it probably at this rate another week we'd be closing toward $5 as the market started to realize the damage is huge. Now, if Iran takes out the desalination plants, electric plants, you're probably looking at gasoline hitting $6-7 because panic is finally going to really set in. The markets have been very unpanicked considering the escalation. They've been very want to believe in fairy tales that everything will be fine. One day we'll all switch it back on and it's all going to be fine. Well, it's not going to be fine. Now, the Gulf isn't fully switched off. Out of 25 million barrels, there's about 7 million barrels are still going out every day. So it could be worse, much worse. Iran is still shipping its oil out for the most part. It's allowing some other oil from from Gulf countries to go out. And the Saudis are still shipping oil out through the Red Sea, which again could be shut down, especially with Yemen in this fight now. Yemen could easily wipe out that terminal.
Or Iran could blow up the pipeline.
Right. Well, blowing up pipelines is a short-term solution. You don't want to go after the pipeline because it's easy enough to repair. You want to go after the pumping stations. You want to go after the control points, the loading stations. That's the big ticket items. And plus, depending on where the pipe is, the pipe may be buried. In Russia, it's a standard thing to bury the pipes in a lot of areas. So hitting the pipe is much harder. Infrastructure-wise, but if the pumping stations are there, you see them, and you can destroy them. So that's another point that makes it very, very difficult to defend. It's infrastructure.
Yeah. So in short, I mean, there is still a significant amount of infrastructure on both sides that hasn't been touched, right? And that there are still potential targets. And if Donald Trump decides to go after all of the infrastructure in Iran, they are going to repay in kind, period.
Oh, yeah. Well, and they've shown that. For example, the Israelis blew up 2 Iranian steel mills. Iran responded by blowing up the Israeli steel mill and taking out 5 more along with the Arabs, Kuwait, down through Emirates. If you're all on the same side in this fight, we're going to destroy you equally. Iran has suffered hits on 30 different universities. This is the difference too. The Americans and yeah, exactly. The Americans and the Israelis are hitting universities. They're not giving prior warning. They're going to hit a university. They just hit universities. If there's professors or students there, they kill them. That's just how it is. Iran, on the other hand, Iran, on the other hand, they gave a day's warning. We're going to hit every American and Israeli university or affiliate of the universities in the Gulf states. You have 1 day to get your people out of there. Don't come within a kilometer. And they proceeded to hit. So they went the much more humane route. You've got fair warning.
It's just kind of amazing how both sides are actually continuing to wage exactly the kinds of war that they've been doing before, and you can see how warfare itself is also a deeply trained and embodied kind of affair, right? The Iranians, they warn and they go proportionally. That's the two things that they do. The Israelis and the Americans, they try to create as much chaos and casualties and civilian infrastructure as possible because, I mean, look at Gaza. That's just how they do things. Let's flatten the place and a few 100,000 people dead. I mean, it's a good thing at the end of the day, right? It just continues on a bigger scale.
It's not collateral damage. It's bonus points. That seems to be the Western approach. It always has been the Western approach to some degree or another. The Anglo-Saxon approach, particularly,
it's pretty sick.
Mass casualties. Yeah,
it's very, very sick. But in a sense, knowing that the war is going to be fought like this. I mean, what Iran is trying to do is to make sure that the U.S. understands. No, we have the ability to repay in kind, and we will do so. So you better don't. Why? is it that the United States still seems to be eager to somehow escalate? Although John Mearsheimer now says, they lost the ability to escalate. I'm not sure I agree with that, because they still do have.
I don't either. Yeah.
They have nukes. They have possibilities to devastate. They have chemical weapons. I mean, there's a lot of ways in which they could go even much more draconian. But what do you think is next on the minds of these sick people?
Well, I think they may go after I think they may go after the electric infrastructure. They have hit. Let's not forget Bashir. Nuclear power plant's been hit 4 times. They're committing. Let's call it what it is: nuclear terrorism. The United States and Israel are guilty of committing nuclear terrorism. So are we any bit surprised that their proxies in Ukraine were and still are trying to blow up the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which has been in conservation to keep it from going nuclear? They tried to hit the Kursk nuclear power plant several times. I mean, are we surprised by this? Of course we're not surprised, because the masters do it. And the interesting thing is, on the second hit, there was an expulsion of radioactive steam. The trade winds blew it into Kuwait. There wasn't that much, but if there's a full nuclear meltdown, considering which direction the winds are going, let's extrapolate from that. It hits Kuwait, it hits western Iraq, it hits northeastern Syria, and it goes right into Turkey. So at this point, the Turks need to maybe get a little more involved in this to stop the U.S. Because they're committing terrorism.
I mean, in a very sick sense, this you cannot keep a nuclear fallout contained to just a small area. And
the fact,
wherever the wind blows. So this, in a very sick way, is one of the best kind of insurances at the moment, that the other side is probably not going to try to do that, because the fallout will be huge. But then again, if you are Israel or the United States, then you are really tucked quite a bit away, right? So I mean, who cares about Syria? Who cares about Iraq, right? Welcome back, everybody. We just had to do a little interruption because there's a puppy in the house, and the puppy is really cute. All right, Stas, let's get back to the topic.
Let's get back to the topic.
The issue, like, of this strategy now, right, that we are seeing at the moment. Do you believe that this is a way to actually get the United States to stop what they're doing? Because the way that the Ukraine war has been going, we saw how they time and again adjusted, but kept basically the pressure up even after the Donald Trump was elected, right? This whole charade of like, oh, we're gonna peace within 1 day and then peace within a month, and then we're now 1.5 years in, and there's still no peace around. And we do know that the United States is still supplying the intelligence, is still supplying weapons. I mean, this war has been continued, just under a different rhetoric. Russia, though, has successfully kind of established that it has the military upper hand, until and unless the United States would be willing to go basically nuclear. And it seems to me that Iran is trying to do something similar, saying like, no, in this war we can stand our ground and push you back. How do you think that their military negotiation strategy or tactic is now playing out?
If you were dealing with a rational opponent in the U.S., one that would like to maybe preserve their position in the Persian Gulf. Well, actually, if you were dealing with a rational player in the U.S., this war wouldn't have happened to begin with. As radicalized as some of the presidents have been before, nobody went down this road. But we went down this road with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump 2.0, Donald Trump 1.0 refused to go down this road. So we understand we're not dealing with a rational player. On top of that, when you hear the language, you see the people around them. We're dealing with a radicalized regime in Washington that I don't think really gives a damn what happens. So they'll probably continue escalating, because the alternative is to admit that you were defeated, even if you say, we won, and go home. And they're going to try to double down. Sorry. Roy Cohen, who's the mentor of Trump, his approach is always never admit you were wrong, and always double down.
Right.
Go ahead, go run around the office.
But I mean, at this point, like especially when we talk about the Bushehr nuclear power plant, I mean, there's about 100 or so Russian workers there, including scientists, including engineers. At this point, Russia must be saying, like, guys. I mean, it's probably to Israel. I mean, this must stop. This is insanity. Or do you hear anything from your sources in Russia?
The Russian engineers have been evacuated out. Russia, I mean, I'm not going to say who's in flying the planes or working on the S-400 systems and all the other stuff. And bringing in I mean, Russia is very actively supporting Iran. Chinese are starting to support Iran. Now they're seeing that Iran's holding its own. It's not going to bend over. And that's going to break. So, and I'm sure there'll be other powers that'll, small and large, that'll start getting involved, like North Korea, for example.
You think so?
Maybe Belarus. The longer this goes, I mean, you've already got a war of 5 sides now against the Zionist coalition, because I don't know what else to call it than that. You've got Iran. They're in combat directly. You have Iran. You have Iraq, both the militias and the government. You have Yemen, and you have Hezbollah. But it's not just Hezbollah alone, because the Lebanese army is now getting involved because they're murdering Christians just quite fine. This is how radicalized the Israelis have been. They have always, when dealing with Lebanon, they've always been very careful not to involve the Christians or the Sunnis. They keep it separate that way. But now they're bombing and killing Christians. They're hitting churches left and right. They've given up all pretense of any kind of control. So now Hamas has entered the fight fully. They've declared themselves in this fight. So now you're getting more and more players in, and this is escalating. Now you've got I believe it was Bahrain along with the UAE that were demanding in the UN that a resolution be passed to force the straits open. Which again, the straits aren't exactly closed; they're selectively closed to them particularly. And though the UAE is still getting some oil out over directly into the Arabians, into the Indian Ocean through their one port on the Indian Ocean, and then through Oman. So this is, and they try to get it through UN. Obviously, it's not going to get past the Russian and the Chinese veto for obvious reasons. So, and the Europeans have said, no, we're not getting involved. Because the Europeans, quite literally, if they really wanted, the Western Europeans could still get oil and gas out of there. They just come in there and pay the toll and buy in euros, non-dollars, and everything's fine.
However, like, when it comes to the veto in the UN, what we've seen last time, 4 days in, we've had this horrible UN resolution condemning Iran for its aggressions against its neighbors, right? And Russia and China both abstained from vetoing it. Russia later on, we know, because there's about 2 million people in Israel with Russian roots, and the Chinese, because they also have a good relationship with the Gulf countries. So they had no intention of pissing them off either. So I mean, in a sense, I don't know where this will go. Not that the UN resolution will do very much, because like both sides will just obviously ignore it. But is there any hope that you're seeing from these other powers around? Because as you're saying, like, the whole thing is spreading, but it seems that at least for now, Israel is still able to absorb this, although they are pretty tiny and are by now also pretty much roughed up.
Oh, they're roughed up. There was videos of long lines on the Egyptian border of Israelis trying to get out on the ground border by foot. They're not really allowed to fly out that much, and when the planes fly out, they can't be, I think, more than half filled for, quote, safety reasons. Really, it's because a large chunk of the population will just remember, oh, we've got a second passport. We're citizens of another country. Let's leave. Well, you're seeing that on the Egyptian border as is. So there's a lot of problems. I mean, the last big call up of 300,000, 1/3 didn't show up. So they're obviously got big problems involved. How do you keep the people fighting? The economy, the biggest plus Israel has is the American taxpayer. Because
Right.
because that's who's going to be building Israel back up at his own expense. Americans don't have free medical care. Americans have paid education. Israel has both because it's got Uncle Moneybags sitting over there
Yeah.
that can maintain it. And that's who's going to be rebuilding the U.S. economy unless something seriously changes in the U.S. government. So that's their calculation. We've got a backstop. Does the U.S. consumer have a backstop? The U.S. voter? No, of course not. He's got bankruptcy. But that's the politicians.
Yeah, but so basically, the Iran at this point is trying to make the war more costly on the United States, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and everyone else to get them to get the United States to stop. I mean, look, what's the United States proposing? Take our plan. We are the aggressors. Accept basically surrender, and then things will be okay. Well, after we overthrow your government and do everything else, because the U.S. approach of we're here to liberate the people by exterminating them. You got Trump. He got asked during the Easter holidays. He was out on the lawn of the White House, and a journalist asked him, well, what about all these people? It's as far as Iran, he's like, oh, they're animals. The Iranian government murders its people, so they're animals. We have to stop them by massacring the population. Yeah, the logic train just goes right off the rails on that one. But that's what we're facing. And the wording, they're animals. When you start talking about your opponents in that level, who do you negotiate with? And this is on television that gets broadcast. It's not like something you say in private company. Yeah, I hate those guys. They're really animals. And you turn around, yeah, let's negotiate. No, this is flat out for the whole world to see. The President of the United States, in the worst times, in the worst wars, I mean, they may have said it in private, but they had never said anything like that about their opponents that would be recorded media. But that's what we have now. And the people around them are no better for the most part.
Well, it depends. The depicting your enemy as animals has long tradition, right? I mean, there are all of these leaflets, even from, I think they are from like U.S. government branches that make in the Second World War that made the Japanese look like rats. Right, so that there is a racist element, There's a different standard toward white Russians versus the other races, right? That thing comes up and bubbles up in war, because war, as Clausewitz said, drives you to the extremes, and it seems to also to just bring out the blatant racism as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, we saw that. We saw that in 2022. All over Europe in the West, the mass.
Well, the orcs, yeah.
The toward Russians, Russian culture, Russian this, Russian that. So if you're talking about, we don't like Vladimir Vladimirovich, which again, everybody has a right to like and dislike somebody as they wish, but it just instantly melted into from we don't like Vladimir Vladimirovich, or we don't like this policy, or we don't like this war, even though we don't really understand why this conflict started. To all Russians are evil and got to be destroyed.
That came pretty fast. Yeah, that's
yeah. The difference between us and the Jews in the 1930s is there's 150 million of us, and we have a huge army. So that's the big difference.
But we were at the brink of nuclear escalation also with Russia under Biden, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Including, of course, Operation Spiderweb and so on, and with these assassination attempts, and even the long-range missiles that were done. So, in a sense, what Russia managed to do is to convince the other side to cut it out. And so Iran is now in this position where it needs to convince the other side that no, you must cut this out. Otherwise, I mean, the damage on you is going to be so huge that you can't stomach it. The question is it enough to threaten that to the Gulf states and maybe even to Israel?
Well, there's a good meme that's a meme that saw I don't know to mispronounce the word the other day, and there's the White House administration going. Somebody asked them, "Why are we attacking Iran? Because they have nuclear weapons." Then why don't you attack Russia? Because they have nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it all circles back to this one, which is also quite crazy, right? Because the JCPOA was working, all of these things were working, which just is again like actually just proves, I think, that Brian Berletic's point is an important one. They made whatever you do, there's a grand strategy behind this kind of onslaught to just destroy anyone who could potentially oppose you. Good. Is there anything
I disagree. I slightly disagree with Brian that Israel is an absolute tool of the U.S. I think I won't say that Israel owns the U.S. I think it's a dog chasing its own tail in this case, or as some people say, a self-licking ice cream cone. They're very much entwined with each other to do each other's biddings because there's lots of money involved.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way I think to understand this, to me, in a political sense, is just to understand it as a colonial enterprise, settler colonial enterprise, where the colony obviously is still tethered to the motherland, right? Period. And they have reciprocal. I mean, they share one bloodstream. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you would like to add, or shall we give your puppy his daddy back?
Yeah, I got another call after this, so he's gonna be. He doesn't know that yet.
All right,
get some water.
Go and get a little bit of cuddle time with him, and
You're gonna get massive additional clicks and views now because of the pup.
We'll see. Everybody, like, please comment in the message box below whether you enjoyed this or whether you want the Stanislav Krapivnik's attention back to our discussion. But thank you for taking the time. Everybody wants to follow you. It's Slavic Man.
It's Mr. Slavic Man with a K, or on X Stanislav Krapivnik. We couldn't get the whole name in, and there's limitations. We Russians have long names.
Google Stas. I'll try to put the links into the description box below. Stas Krapivnik. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.